Welcome to the Film Board. On this episode, we are talking about the new animated film from Sony Pictures Animation about a family coming together to save the world from a new app gone wrong. It's Michael Rianda's The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Let it begin.
The last humans must be here somewhere. Wait.
They're coming.
Is that a burnt orange 1993 station wagon? Or is it... Who are these unstoppable warriors?
We're the Mitchells, the only people who can save the world. I'm super sorry, everyone.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Katie. I'm sort of a weirdo. My parents haven't figured me out yet. To be fair, it took me a while to figure myself out. My brother, also weird.
Hi, would you like to talk to me about dinosaurs? No. Okay, thank you.
And my mom.
Katie face cupcakes.
All of us, really.
How about we put our phones down and we can make 10 seconds of unobstructed family eye contact. Starting now. See, this is good right here. This is natural.
Every family has its challenges.
We haven't had a good family picture in years because you two are always arguing.
For my family, our greatest challenge... probably the robot apocalypse.
My name is Andy Nelson, host of The Next Reel, and today I'm chatting with 3 hosts from various Next Reel properties to get their thoughts on this movie so we can share them with all of you. Mandy Kaplan.
Hello.
Pete Wright.
Still crying.
And Steve Sarmento.
I'm not crying, you're crying. Or you're not crying, I'm crying. There's so much crying.
Well, on the wall in Pixar, where the animators are working, there are big words on the wall saying, "Make me care." Did this movie make you care? Mandy.
About everything and everyone.
Oh.
Particularly pugs with googly eyes. I, in general, loved and respected every frame of this movie.
Nice. All right. Pete, what about you?
Except for the pugs, because the things kept landing on its eyeball, and that drove me bananas. Like, stand up and itch everywhere. There's a fly on his eyeball. I can't handle the eyeballs bit.
Things on eyeballs.
I just...
But it didn't bother Manchi.
Manchi was brain dead in a vegetative state most of the movie. I love everything about it. The anthropomorphized technology bit, mostly I watch this movie with my 18-year-old daughter who has been in college from here, and we're now planning again to do the road trip to drop her off at college next year, and her little brother, and I could not, it was just me watching the movie and then looking over at them and then watching the movie and then looking over at the kids, and it was awful. It was awful and beautiful, and I can't wait to watch it again already.
Yeah, I hear you there. Steve, what about you?
So the question is, did the movie make me care? I didn't know how much this movie cared about me. There was so much in here that we were looking at each other like, how did they know they made this for us? There were so many things that were either specific to our family that we could really relate to. And at one point, we had paused it to wipe our tears away. And I said, I don't remember kids' movies making my parents cry like this before. Maybe as a kid I was oblivious to it, but this movie just went for the heart in so many ways, and in a way that it felt like it was being respectful to its audience. In a way, I think oftentimes in a kids movie you can play the parents as bumbling adults, but these were all truly, well-rounded human characters, people that I know intimately, very closely, because that's us up there in the screen, and it just showed me how much they cared to tackle the subject matter, to take both sides of an argument and really press into it in the emotional core of it.
Yeah, I'm right there with all of you and this film. It was such just an emotional ride. It was great. I totally connected. I really I knew I wanted to watch this. I'd heard good things. I pretty much forced my family to watch it with me this morning. All of them were like, do we have to? We just did family movie night last night. Why do we have to watch another movie? And at the end of the movie, the movie was just so touching. Like, both of our kids came over, gave us hugs. And afterward, my daughter, who, she's moody teenager and often is like wanting to do her own things. She asked me to play Just Dance with her for a couple hours. And so we totally grooved out and jammed. And it was like, I was like, oh, if this is working.
Did you do Bangarang?
We didn't do Bangarang.
That's my favorite.
I tell you, we did a wide variety of songs. And let me just tell you, that is quite the workout.
I'm feeling a dance off later, Andy. I'm just saying.
I'm looking forward to it.
Bring it.
Definitely. Well, I mean, yeah, it's a fantastic film. So let's get into it and start talking about it. Michael Rianda, interestingly, said this story came about. Sony, they had that whole hack and everything, and they were really kind of trying to figure out what are we going to do with our animated division, and they ended up kind of bringing on new blood, basically. And they talked to Michael Rianda and said, "What ideas do you have?" And he didn't have anything, but he's just like, "Oh yeah, I've got tons of stuff," and totally started coming up with this like very quickly. And I think that it worked. And I'm amazed that they found this story. And I think that it's hitting on so many interesting points. We have family dysfunction and this struggle in your own family dynamic to get your family to be that ideal of what you're always picturing you want it to be. And then, of course, comparing yourself to other families on social media. Not to mention the whole idea of social media and all these tech companies and how tech is kind of taking over our lives. Let's talk about all that, because I think there's a lot to unpack in all of these elements that are coming together in this story.
I just want to say technology at the table is a real trigger for me. It really bothers me. And my husband, God love him, will often have his phone like right out, not on silent, and every text or everything, he immediately has to answer it and look at it and go to it. And I just feel like if the family is together, it's not an emergency amongst us. So put it away for 20 minutes while we eat our lunch. This film, when the dad says, 10 seconds of uninterrupted eye contact, I felt his pain to walk into a room and see everybody on a screen with the blue light. Oh, I felt his pain. And I'm guilty of it too.
The longest 10 seconds in the movie too. I mean, it was amazing what they were able to do with that. I totally appreciate that point. And it makes me think about just the design, the architecture of the story itself. And back to something you opened with, Andy, that Rianda said, it was that this was a thing that just sort of came up for him. It wasn't a story that had been really just sort of sitting and aging and like becoming something in his head, like the true artiste I've been trying to tell this story for 25 years. And, but it feels like it's been aged in a fine oak. And I think that is a magical part of the family angle, because even though we didn't have all the technology, this movie felt every bit like my family when I was a kid with my parents as it does to me as a parent with my kids. And that, I think, is something that makes this movie really special, that it doesn't anchor on the technology stuff, that it just augments the heart of the film and allows us to have all the great sort of cultural humor. But you don't need it. It already has a beating heart of its own. The story is just fantastic.
Yeah, I think what's interesting to me about it, that this is such a new story, there was a freshness to it that there's been always. Every generation has its technology. I think for our, we were the generation raised by the television, now it's, social media, all that. But what was very interesting to me was that it really got into something that I think is relatively new, which is memes and the vocabulary of memes and how that was integrated into Katie's telling of the story. That's how teens communicate. It's not just, YOLO and lols and all of that. There's a whole new vocabulary out there because their communication is becoming increasingly visual. It's not just text. It's now TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram. And so it's visual forms of communication, and that fed so well into this story about a young filmmaker who her experience of the world is through her phone. And it's the way she filters things. It's the way she constructs her reality. It is all of those things. And the visual dynamics of this film were so fresh and exciting to layer in 3D animation, 2D animation, video, photography, all of these things that just represented, I think, the visual vocabulary that teenagers have and how they communicate. And for me, that was one of the guess, sources of energy in this movie. It wasn't just, a typical 2D or 3D animated, here's a movie that we could have just shot with ordinary people. Anyway, there's so much that uses the computer animation and animation styles to tell the story as well. And I think the content of the story fits so well with that structure.
Well, that's something I really liked about just the way that it unfolds, because yes, at the core of it, we've got the family dynamic with the Mitchells, and then we have the machines, which is kind of the tech company dynamic, making this new upgraded version of your phone with arms and legs that can walk around, and eventually, of course, they try to take over. But in the middle of that, you have, as you're saying, Steve, this film student who she's a pro at her technology. We constantly see her making these little films, and she's doing all sorts of really creative things and making great art. And she gets into film school with it, and she's using technology to its greatest effect. And that's what I loved about it, is like you're seeing that evolution of technology from kind of different angles, and how positive it can be, but then also, as it turns out, how negative it can be. And I love that they're exploring that.
I feel like the film argues it from both sides. We see the dad's perspective that throw the phones away. And we see Katie's perspective of this is, she says at the very end, this is how I see the world, how I experience the world. And it's positive and it's good. And I don't know that, this movie's such an allegory but yet with an unclear stance. We need these things, and these things have such a positive effect in our lives.
Well, I think it goes to the point of social media and how, yes, the family at the table, that is not a good use of technology when it isolates us from each other. Whereas Katie's filmmaking and her use of technology, she finds her people at college. It's her identity. It's a way to communicate. And I think that's sort of the split between this of when we use technology to create barriers between ourselves and each other. That's when it becomes dangerous. As we see, later on, everybody gets put in their little entertainment pods. And that's, I think that type of engagement with technology to an extreme of, I don't need the rest of the world. I'm just here with my Wi-Fi and my screen, and that's all I need, versus Katie is really about reaching out and trying to find it. I think that's, for me, the best takeaway about this, that it's not saying, technology is bad. It's, let's look at how we use technology and let's find the positives in that, and let's be cautious about the negatives. And I'm sure we'll get into a lot more about social media and the companies and a lot of the commentary that is around those as well. But in terms of family dynamics, technology is great when it allows us to have better ways to communicate with each other.
And also, there's a whole thing about when you are part of a family and you have a child who is really into doing something with this technology. And this was a great learning, our character arc for Dad is seeing him learn that, I need to understand this technology. I can't always come to my children with what I like and what I want them to like and force that on them. I also have to kind of meet them halfway. And if they're really into this stuff, I need to kind of start figuring that stuff out so I too can meet them there and enjoy what they're doing. And I loved seeing that journey for Dad as he goes through this, and how funny it was at the end when he's crying in the corner trying to get himself set up on a YouTube account.
And sent the invitation to the subscription invitation by mail was an incredible touch. That was fantastic. At the end, they're all in the pods, the entertainment pods, and there's just so much action in that final act that I kept thinking, maybe they haven't stopped to think just how great those entertainment pods are. Part of me is I could take the tech pod. I'd take that. Shoot me into space. It's fine. Give me a chance to rest.
I loved their advertisement. Your journey will last forever.
Conan's VO.
Until you leave, until you arrive at your deep heart blackness of space.
No, it was really fun. And I really enjoyed it. As you were saying, Pete, kind of the using technology and anthropomorphizing it in a way where, we had these robots that were, they had a lot of personality, especially the two that we end up spending quite a bit of time with, Eric and Deborah.
Deborah Bot 5000.
the two broken robots. But I loved how we kind of get this personality. And even from Pal, just the face and the fits that she throws, as Olivia Colman doing such a great job. I loved it when she's having they lay her down on the table and she just vibrates a fit and she's just flipping over and over like a dead fish. But I thought
But she requests it.
Yeah.
She requests it, right.
Please lay me down on the table so I can flip around. And I loved it.
That's an interesting thing too, that they could have made, and I was worried that they were going this direction when Mark, the tech CEO of PAL, goes out for his big speech. I was worried that he was going to become the maniacal genius, right? The villain. And they didn't make him the villain. They made him the guy who's super smart and didn't think through the implications of all the decisions that he made. But the technology, whose name is Mark, and he's standing at the on the theater, the Steve Jobs theater stage, and but they didn't make him the villain. They let technology run amok and make that the villainous character. And I really appreciated that, because I think there's just so much meat there. There's so much more to mine when you don't have just a bad guy, the simplest, easiest out. I think they took the more sophisticated route.
Which, I mean, that's definitely a lot of work trying to kind of craft the story that way. But I also really appreciated that he wasn't the bad guy. And, I thought that there was an interesting element that he is clueless. And in the end, he's just sitting in his own little pod, completely just, kind of resigned and being entertained by, as it turns out, Katie's videos, which was very funny. And so I liked that about him. Now, Pete, obviously you're a big Apple guy and you love all of this sort of stuff. I mean, did anything with the campus that we have here remind you of anything in particular?
The fly through, I think, was really great, because this is, since COVID, Apple has done all of their all these tech companies have done all of their big events virtually, and Apple in particular has put a lot of money into production and have created this like best in class virtual event. And the cameras, the drone cameras, the things that they do to fly across their big new campus into the open doors, down the stairs into the theater, they used a shot that was, directly ripped from flying into the Steve Jobs theater on Apple's campus. And I got a great chuckle out of that. There are a number of just pitch perfect tech nods for those who follow this stuff, particularly around privacy and the technology and the devices we use. And I think they just handled it perfectly. Nothing was too on the nose until we get to his whoever thought that selling personal data for business would be a bad thing or whatever. I don't remember the exact line, but it was just great.
It was a well-written line, and he delivered it so fast, and it was like the point of the whole movie, and it got me.
Yeah.
That wink and nod. Just
Yeah.
I liked the way they handled that.
Yeah.
Well, and also the ubiquity of everything, of technology and smart tech getting everywhere, to when they're in the mall being attacked by all the PAL, connected devices. So they go to the sporting goods store and dad picks up a tennis racket, and it's a smart tennis racket and it's got a computer chip in it. It's like, why would you need that? And it's a question worth asking. Does technology just start to breed into everything, and we never stop to ask why? Why do you need a smart tennis racket to help you with your game? It seems ridiculous.
Or refrigerator.
Oh,
Yes.
God, the carnage setting on the washing machine.
Yes.
And that is another great scene, because I think it's important to note that, none of the tech companies were saved in this thing. Everyone was savaged. That mall scene was pointed at you, Jeff Bezos. Like that was exactly the Alexa issue. Everything has Alexa in it now. And that is, and so, they were equally universally savaged in this movie, and I think the best way.
I was a little perplexed that Furbies apparently are connected to the PAL network. And it's very funny seeing them being attacked by Furbies, especially when they have their own language that we get to see with subtitles here. But it was like, are Furbies still a thing? I don't know. Maybe I'm just disconnected.
They came back around a while ago, because so that was a while ago. When my kids were younger, we got them a Furby. It was like the second generation or second time around with these things. And we had a debate and discussion because we can't remember for sure. Now, Emma will say that Hannah is the one that wanted to make it evil. We thought it was Emma, but we do remember one of the children wanted to be mean to the Furby to see, can we make this thing turn evil? And now we know, yes, that can happen. But it was I think it was a little scarring for Emma as we watched this of like, oh, not Furby again, just because the thing would go off in the middle of the night. He would wake up and start talking that Furby language in the closet at the middle of the night. And so for like a 5-year-old, that's kind of spooky.
Creepy.
When that happens. Yes, exactly.
There's something very strange about that is a little discomforting, but yeah. But I mean, it's one of those jokes, and Furbies. I mean, they've been around. We knew about them when we were younger, and now our kids know about them. And it's just one of those things. And that's what I loved about this is they find ways to bring jokes in for everybody. I mean, and Dad at the end when they're approaching Silicon Valley and seeing the giant thing that the tech has created, he's like, it's like a Journey album cover, and like that was a fantastic joke that like my kids would never get, but I was cracking up out loud at that. And so I loved that they had all of these things that everyone, like the meme with the howler monkey that popped up a couple times, like that was used to great effect.
It's a gibbon.
Yes,
it's a gibbon. Thank you.
It's a gibbon.
Yes.
But you have that, but then the one that completely caught me off guard because it goes even further back is Dad's face is a transition shot. The old Batman, where the Batman logo would come up to the screen, you'd have that whirling music, and they did the exact same thing. Yes, yeah. And they did that very quickly with Dad's face, just and that transition music. It was perfect because it's just this movie brings things that are so familiar out of nowhere, but it is the perfect thing at the perfect time that you need in this movie. And the fact that it isn't stuck in one generation, you go from things from the 60s to YouTube videos from this year, all within one movie, makes this that perfect like family 4-quadrant movie that everybody's going to find something that they're going to connect with and appreciate and laugh at.
And not only the references, which I thought were all spot on, which is very reminiscent of Lego Movie. And I mean, they're good at this. But some of the jokes that they used, I have said in my life, like, can we retire that joke? I've seen that joke a million times. And yet they did them in a fresh way. They used a lot of the things that are very familiar and twisted them up and made me laugh out loud.
Can you think of a specific one?
Andy, I'm so glad you asked. I can. They were like, okay, Mitchell family on 3, right? And we've all heard the joke. Wait, are we doing it on 3? Or is it, do we do 1, 2, 3, then we do it? And hands in. And wait, we've all seen that. And they made it this messy, funny joke. They handled it really well. I can't explain exactly how, but they couldn't even get their hands in the center.
Oh, I've totally got you. And I know why, because I had that exact thought, Mandy. It's because the dad kept counting. If you watch that joke, he never stops. Mitchell's on 3. 3, 2, 1, and they're having the argument about are we doing it on 3, and he's still counting, and that is what made it mind-blowingly funny. I've never heard it that way. It was perfect.
Right. I mean, for me, it's a trigger when someone says on 3. I'm like, well, I know what's coming next.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised.
And then he gets to 1, and they still screw it up. Yes. It's something different. It was so good. I love that you brought that up.
And then they just kind of awkwardly walk away.
Yes.
And I mean, I want to also explore a little more of this whole point of that we get in this film, the whole idea of comparing yourself to each other and what social media does, because mom is always comparing herself to the neighbors, the perfect neighbors, the Posies, who, they're just the perfect family on a perfect vacation. Every picture is always like their models. And of course they had perfect, voice casting for Chrissy Teigen and John Legend as the parent.
Beyond perfect.
I'm like, are you kidding? I know they're already perfect. Seriously, it's just great. But you have this idea of being better, and I mean, Black Mirror explored this fantastically in one of their episodes in season 3, and here we have it kind of done here as well. And the idea of trying to be better, when really you just need to be yourself and just capture those moments. And that was another really nice thing to see pointed out here. And that mom didn't have to be, as good as the Posies. And that, again, a great comedy line there at the end when she's like, oh, you weren't already following me on Instagram?
You're welcome.
I think that's a great thing that we're seeing here is in addition to kind of like tech and how it's, taking over our lives and all this sort of stuff, but this idea of comparing yourselves to others. And I think that was a really great thing, especially explored through this particular family.
I mean, the thing is, with each of the family members, they have their own little arc, and that's the piece that is really so well balanced throughout the story. Is it's not just about Katie and the dad and that conflict needing to get resolved. You see, there's little arcs with even the brother and his whole dinosaur thing, and what, you know, being at that age of where girls start to be interesting, and you get your little dinosaur wiggly guys that you know play with. You know, that transformation for him, and mom as well, of sort of coming into her own power there to save her family. Don't mess with the mama bear. All of that. Everything was handled so well, and there was just enough of it to keep the plot going on, to keep us engaged and see where each of these characters are. I mean, the conversation that Katie and mom have in the car when dad's asleep, snoring in the back, just this really frank, honest conversation of a mom sharing with her daughter about what, you know, this is what she has to put up with every night, and giving Katie sort of that peek behind the curtain of this is what adulting is sort of like. This is who your parents really are as real people. You don't see that very often, particularly in a comedy, because everybody's a flat stereotype that's a caricature of something. And here we've got characters with dimension to them that grow and change. And to me, that gives the opportunity to bring out the tears, because you're hitting those emotional notes. I mean, we started this movie, we were 14 minutes in and we had to pause because already the tears had started. We're like, wait a second. We wanted light comedy from Netflix and Sony. What is going on? This isn't Pixar. This isn't Up. We're not supposed to be crying 10 minutes in, but it did that. And it did it so well that it just clued us in that this was going to be a truly unique film that was accomplishing things just in story. And then when you layer all the other technical pieces to it, we just thought this came out of nowhere. I'd just completely forgotten about this. I think it was a trailer rewind or a trailer pick from Andy. You said it was called Connected back in the day. I think somebody picked it as a trailer pick back, I don't know, a year or so ago with that, because I remember seeing this, and then when it came out, I was like, this title doesn't seem familiar. Maybe I'm confusing it with something else, but this is just like the bright spot of early 2021 for me. This film.
The whole idea of the family and each person kind of getting their own journey, I think that's an important thing to do. And it's really hard to do in a project, because generally you have like the protagonist, typical storytelling, like the protagonist would have their journey, the character's journey, and they're going on their arc over the course of the story. And the other characters are around them and in one way or another kind of influencing that journey. I think the more characters you have who are on their own journey over the course of the film, the trickier it can become in telling that story. And they did it really marvelously here. I mean, we have Katie and her dad, who are both kind of going on this journey themselves. You know, she's wanting to get away from her family because she wants to find her own people. Dad is trying to keep the family together and wants to kind of keep those connections. And like you said, you've got Aaron, who is, you know, he's hit that age where he's losing his sister. And I thought there was some really touching moments between him and his sister that were really well done. But also, like as you said, he's hitting that age where he's starting to kind of be interested in girls. And I love the way that that's explored.
And he's voiced so beautifully. The director voiced it. Oh,
so good.
I loved it.
When he bursts through the window and they catch him in the room. And then, of course, mom, as you said, you know, she's always looking at the other, at the posies, and wants to be them. And here she is able to finally come into her own as this power mom, essentially. And then the dog, of course, the dog also gets...
He's a little gentleman. He's a little gentleman.
Well, and he gets his eyes to finally come together and focus as the phone is coming toward him. I was like, I can't believe they even were able to get the dog in here to have...
And Mark, not Zuckerberg, had his own journey.
Yeah,
even though he's not,
right.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
true.
he really comes to his truth
Yeah.
and regrets his decisions and oversight. So, yeah.
It's solid. I mean, favorites? Any favorite characters or favorite character moments from any of these people?
So many.
So many. I think, you know, what summed it up, though, is when you have the, and it again becomes a pivotal story point of our two defective robots that have been since reprogrammed, looking at Frank the Dad saying, wait, you've changed your programming? He's trying to upload Katie's video to YubTub or YouTube, right? So the dog video, because the video confuses the robots, and they're seeing Frank, who they have observed throughout their journey together, not being friendly with technology, not understanding it, and him working so hard to get technology right, that's what's their pivot. That's what's their shift at the end. And I thought everything comes down to, if we as people can change who we are, if we can change our programming, we can become better people, and that machines can figure that out or can observe that. To me, that was just, it tied everything together so well. And I would hate to say that the robots were my favorite, but I think that moment captured what I think was so essential for everybody's stories.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought that was really strong. I think anything with the dad, because I think so much that's what I relate to right now. Like, so much of his journey is my journey, and I think it was so perfectly performed by Danny McBride that and I felt like I was getting weirdly closer to true Danny McBride. Like, he was out of his other character that he is.
Didn't
in
he blow
so
you
often.
away?
Blew me away. I
my expectations were low.
Yeah. And,
really?
And
Well, I like him, but I didn't think he could do this.
He does kind of tend to play kind of a dumb, kind of a hillbilly-ish sort of character like that. That's kind of my sense of the characters he plays. I always go back to his Tropical Thunder character when he's the one
sound guy.
He's the
one who
the
blows
effects
everything
guy.
up.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Pyrotechnics guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that just kind of it feels like, I mean, that became the thing that people knew him for and laugh at, and it's an easy thing to sell. And this, I think, gives us the guy's clearly has range, and he has an opportunity to demonstrate it here through, I think, one of the greatest, nuanced, vulnerable voice performances that I've seen in recent years. I thought he was just terrific, and I really connected with what he was doing here.
I don't want to spoil what's coming, but here I go. I'm going to do it. And I apologize. I was so moved. I'm going to get choked up just saying it out loud that our protagonist was gay, and that it was so subtly, lovingly, respectfully a part of this movie. And I did a somewhat deep dive into it. And it was, sorry, I'm getting very emotional. It was just thrilling. And that was, for me, took a movie that I already loved and just made it revolutionary. I'm so proud of this film for that.
That was one of those moments right there toward the end. And it's
one line.
Mentioned.
Yeah.
It's a mention about, she says, "Are you and Jade a thing? And will you be bringing her home for Thanksgiving?" It's there. It's not anything other than just a normal question. And I'm right there with you. I'm getting choked up too. It was really powerful the way that they just have that in there as just like, it's normal life.
Well, I think it's aspirational too, just how easy they made it look, right? I mean, it was such an easy, nonchalant way to write that character nod into this movie, and to show it to the people who are going to see this movie, and make it look so easy. Like, this is how you do it. This is how you impact culture at a larger scale. This is how you do it. You normalize it, and they made it easy.
And so there are a couple of other nods throughout the movie that once I read about it, I was like, oh, right, But she says to her brother, who's feeling all insecure and like, why do I have a crush on the neighbor girl? And she's I'm so choked up. She says, don't ever be embarrassed by who you love.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's saying that to a brother who's has a crush on a girl.
Yeah.
She's saying you get to love who you love. And, and I might have messed up that quote. I apologize. But that is another theme of this movie that was so beautifully laid out, subtly laid out. Sony's not doing a marketing campaign about it. They're not going to publicize that this is an LGBTQ film or, groundbreaking, because it should just be that some characters are part of that community and some aren't.
Yes.
It shouldn't have to be a thing. And this felt like a huge leap towards normalizing something that should just be normal and accepted. And I just loved it.
It was fun to talk about that after the film too, because I'm watching it and I'm the Memorex guy. Like my head is blown back when I see that line, and I look over at my 18-year-old who's looking at it like, huh, kind of smiling and nodding, and I look at my 14-year-old who's like, has no idea that that's an issue at all. Like,
Right?
Completely no idea that that's a thing at all. I thought, okay, this is how it works. That's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep, changes getting made. Well, and it with a film that has for its theme finding your people. And what I loved about that, because that definitely is the theme, we hear it quite a number of times. She wants to find her people. She wants to have that connection. And I also loved how at the end of that, finding your people also includes finding it in your family and having that family connection that is so powerful. But also in context of this that we're talking about right now, that also is the thing. It's just like, love who you love and connect with who you connect with. And that's okay. Just, it's all part of life and it's how it should be. It's really powerful. Yeah.
Right.
I know.
It's just lovely.
Wait, is this the first for the film board? Like where everybody's tearing up? I know.
The funny thing is,
so good.
We've used that line with Hannah all throughout high school of frustrations of feeling like an outcast. And we said, when you get to college, you will find your people. Because my wife and I had the same experience. When you get to college, you find your community, you find your people. That there's maybe one person from high school I'm still in touch with, but handfuls from college. And so we said, you will find your people. And so when they said that line, I was just like, they're in our house. How do they know these things?
Right.
These are the exact conversations we've had. And, what that means for everybody is different. And that's the thing that, was so great about this is that it's not pushing a specific message. It's about here's human beings and here's how they interact with each other. And here's how we need to do a better job of that within families and all of that. And that's, for me, the best way to go about that, because people's barriers and their guards are down and they're going to see things and they're going to connect with this. And as they watch it again and again, they're going to see different things about this. They're going to pick up on things, but really it's about what it means to be a good human being, and that's, you can't ask for more than that.
And I can't wait to watch it again tomorrow with my son because he couldn't watch it today.
Yeah.
And
nice.
And I'm giddy that I get to experience it again. And like you just said, Steve, pick up on new things.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the last movie I watched and thought, I can't wait to watch it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
What a gift Sony has given us.
And I think, truly. And the fact that Sony didn't say no to this stuff, that the stuff that's making us emotional is really powerful, but also just there's so much to look at. I mean, I think the look and texture, the integration of different styles of animation. I mean, it just took what I loved about Into the Spider-Verse, art direction and made it just leveled it up in every possible way. It was a joy for my eyeballs. It didn't even matter what they were saying in many sequences. It was just beautiful.
That's something that I think Sony Animation, they've really excelled in some of this stuff in exploring different types of animation. I mean, Pixar certainly creates beautiful films. Let's not
they're
discount
chumps.
them.
Now that I've seen this, Pixar's chumps.
Yeah.
Just
Right. Yeah. Just a
Pixar,
bunch of
the
chumps over
McDonald's of animation. Whatever.
They work in one format. They don't layer things in. Because there's the big in your face things. But there's the subtle things of just even when we see Katie as when she's in like elementary school and she's got her film and the class, laughs and all that. And you get little like two-dimensional, like hand-drawn little hearts that break. And it's just those little things like out of the comic book. It reminds me of, Scott Pilgrim as well, as where you just you bring in those things and because you're not in this world. You're in this other world that either Katie's narrating, so we know that her frenetic filmmaking style bleeds over, so we get those title cards and all that fun stuff. But you have to think about when we impose the Gibbons face over her dad's face, over Pal's face when she crashes. It's like, that's not a film technique you see anywhere, really, where we're taking animated character and putting live action video at top of it and then intercutting back and forth. When do you see that in a family film, a kid's animated movie? I can't think of, where I see opportunities, but it makes so much sense for this. And that's where I look at the groundbreaking stuff that we talked about when we reviewed Spider-Verse a few years ago of really pushing the limits, and how do you represent an emotion with motion, the things that you get out of a comic book, where you have all these elements present, but then to animate them and bring them to life. And this just pushed it even farther by, because at the end, my wife said, "Oh yeah, there were photos in there as well." It's like, there were, and we went back and I'm like, yeah, because you've got the family. Oh, we've never taken a good photo. He's like, that one there. She's like, that's the one that came with the frame, and it's a photo. I don't think it's
right.
And then playing with the fact that the posies, as they're going through on their iPad, like the photos, they're not photos of 3D animated family. It's like a 2D illustration. So even in their 3D world, their photos don't look like 3D. So many things going on because they pick the right format that makes the most sense for what they're trying to communicate.
I think that's something that, I want to talk about Lord and Miller for a quick second. I mean, this is Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who are they came onto the animation scene with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which I think is just a brilliant, brilliant film. 2009, they directed that, co-directed it. And then, they dipped into live action with 21 Jump Street, but then, they've still directed some animated films like the Lego Movie, but they've been producing a lot of stuff, including Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the Lego movies, which again, it's kind of that stop motion Lego animation that they're doing. And now all of this, and I feel like they are constantly finding ways to explore animation in different ways and do these techniques that you're getting that you don't always see. Like you're never going to see. I'll take a step back and say, okay, Walt Disney was doing like live action and animation in films way long ago. But still, when you see stuff like that happen suddenly in the Lego movie in such a powerful way that hits you to the core, it's like, what did they just do here? How did they figure out a way to kind of turn this whole movie into something completely different? And that's what I think that they're doing here. They're finding another way to use animation and explore it in so many different ways that it's not just the same old. Like you're really getting something unique, and that's what I love about what's happening here.
It's really interesting to listen to Rianda talk about that experience, because he talks about the animators. He said we inherited a lot of people who came to us from Spider-Verse, and he talks about them as if they were broken on Spider-Verse and came as just these explosive animating machines that kept saying things like, "What else have you got?" Like they're just drooling and frothing at the mouth. Like, yeah, we did that on Spider. What do you want now? Just broken. I just love that image that allowed him to just really push in these new directions. And he referred to Lord and Miller as his rich uncles, because they came on and they were just like, they have all of the story instinct. He says, just to the nth degree. He said, they push and get seen by as many people as you possibly can. And then Sony says, okay, you can only have these 5 songs. And Lord and Miller will say behind their hands, yeah, we'll work it out, whatever you want. Like, you can have whatever you want. And I just love it. Like, the whole atmosphere feels like, of course we would get this movie out of that machine. Of course we would. It was that no other movie could come out of that atmosphere. Just great.
And the elements that Steve was talking about, like the little hearts that burst, or you could see characters' thoughts sometimes in a little animation, like a rainbow, or they used 2D animation to show us some inner monologues for characters, along with title cards and chyrons, which to me is also like, that's how kids are used to seeing everything on the internet, right?
Yeah.
My son shows me these videos on YouTube, and that's how it's all done with the filters. There were a lot of the cat filter jokes so to us, I think that's a little more revolutionary. To us, it's like, wow, last time we saw this was Spider-Verse. But to our kids, like, that's what they expect now. And these adults know that and used it to a beautiful degree. They maximized the effect of all of these things.
Eyes of the pterodactyl.
Yes, it's filmmakers. So back when I taught high school, there was always stuff about like cultural literacy and what is a culturally literate, American supposed to know. There's lists of dates and people. And I would talk with, my colleagues and say, are you culturally literate in the culture of your students? Because if you don't know who SpongeBob SquarePants is in 1999, 2000, you're not going to connect with your students. You need to know the things that they're talking about. Now it's like Minecraft. If you have, kids of a certain age and you're an adult and you want to get on their level, you talk Minecraft with them. This to me is Hollywood speaking to this generation, whatever, I forget what they're called, Gen Z or what, I don't remember.
Okay, boomer.
This is, yes, I know. But this is Hollywood now speaking to them in their language they speak to each other with, like on YouTube and TikTok, as Mandy says, this is what they're used to. For it to come from Hollywood now I think that's the revolutionary aspect of it, of realizing this is the vocabulary that kids are familiar with. This is how we're going to connect with them. This is how we're going to reach them, because we could do what we've always done, and sure, a really good story might connect with them. But if we use their own visual vocabulary, we're going to get them. They're going to feel heard and understood in a way that they haven't felt before. And I think that's one of the things that, Emma said. She's like, oh my God, I'm so glad we watched this tonight, because it was just all these things she said. You never see this in a movie before, and she just felt so connected to it as a 18-year-old, something different coming to her in from Netflix and Sony,
while still throwing in movie references for movies that we all know, like They Live and The Burbs and Dawn of the Dead and Kill Bill. It's like
I missed all of those. I haven't heard of any of those, but yeah, I believe you.
Yeah. Well, that's what's so fun is they are reaching out to everybody.
Yes.
It's,
right.
I mean, but yes, I mean, I love that they're really finding a way to connect to the voices of the youth right now, and just really make sure that they have those things that they're used to seeing in the film, which is just great.
Well, there's a couple things that are sort of the in-jokes, because when Katie's doing her video to submit to college, she's got the Mount Rushmore of directors behind her, and it's not the typical ones you would expect, because we have Lynn Ramsey, Hal Ashby, Greta Gerwig, and Celine Sciamma are her Mount Rushmore. And so those are not, it's not Hitchcock, Scorsese, Spielberg. It's a different thing. And then she finishes her video and she says, thank you for watching, Dog Cop and, 85 of my other short films. And it's got her sort of YouTube channel screen, and it's got all the tiles of all of her shorts. And if you pause it and look, she's got parodies of things like Being There. It's Going There. She's got a parody of Perks of Being a Wallflower and Portrait of an Idiot on Fire.
Yeah.
All of those things that are in there that, again, represent what are the films that are foundational to and important to this generation. It's not the directors deciding these are the things that inspired us. They're keying into what is this generation connecting with and putting it in the character of Katie. And to me, that was really, really refreshing, that it wasn't the same old standards that I always get to see. It was, that aspect of it was really, really refreshing.
Well, they demonstrated that our protagonist loves movies. Like,
yes.
they demonstrated authentically with those choices. I think it was so smart.
And I hope the sequel is Dog Cop.
Yeah,
I could watch a lot more of Dog Cop. And even though the final episode of Dog Cop that we see is so on the nose, it was such a lovely, they were like, look how on the nose and cheesy this will be, that she wrote a movie about her and her dad and their, and it tonally was perfect. Tonally, they just nailed it, even though it could have been an eye-rolly moment. But also just the Dog Cop's hilarious.
Was that there was a real sock, right? That was a photoreal sock. That was not an animated sock, right?
No, it was animated.
It was an animated sock.
I thought it was animated.
I thought they animated a face onto a real sock.
Oh, I don't know.
It happened so fast.
Yes. I just hope they announce Dog Cop coming this fall on Netflix. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Watch the hell out of that.
Well, and I loved, just speaking of the dog, just the fact that she straps him to the hood of the car as the tool to confuse the robots, because they just can't figure out, they can't compute when they're looking at it.
Dog,
that was
pig,
genius.
loaf of bread. Oh, it's brilliant.
Dog, pig. That was great. And, my wife's moment that she burst out laughing. I have not heard her laugh so hard in a movie. I don't even know the last time. It was when Pal is talking to Katie, trying to say, give me one good reason why I should keep you all alive, something like that. And Katie's giving this really honest answer. And this is something that I noticed in Mike Rianda's short films. He does a great use of building the music and then allowing it to be a hard cut to something immediately after to play the the comedy of it. And we have the music building as Katie's telling the story. And then it's a hard cut to Pal in sleep mode. Just like she's just snoozing through the whole thing. And I mean, it's just like, that's another great use of the comedy. It was just, I mean, it's so funny, and they just consistently use it.
The hard cuts are frequent, and we've all, I'm sure, written them and made them in our projects, and we've all seen them a million times. Well, that would never happen. Boom. And there it is happening. Every one of them made me laugh in this movie. And there are a lot of them. And how they continually made me laugh was a mystery to me, because apparently I'm terribly cynical and I'm over it. But
it's smart storytelling.
They worked.
These are smart comedy writers who get you attached to all these characters right away in very strong connections, and then they find ways to play that. And I think that's just great. Pete, I wanted to bring up a point. You were bringing up the look of the film a little bit, and kind of the animation, and we were talking about kind of the style and how they were playing with all of it. But I have to just go back to the idea that just the way that they're animating now, like this CG animation where it looks like this watercolor, like I found myself constantly mesmerized staring at people's clothing, because I'm like, it looks like they've painted like every frame of this. I mean, it's stunning what they're doing now with CG. And I know some of that came, like, they were adapting it from kind of the different ways they were playing with animation in Spider-Verse. But it's just, I mean, it was unlike other animated films, just this watercolored look through the whole thing. I mean, is nuts.
You want a masterclass in this? Just watch Rick's chin, right? Because Rick has a beautiful, 2D beautiful face, and his beard, his scruffle of his beard, right, is perfectly drawn and illustrated. And if you watch that on his close-ups, the way he moves, it's it's a lenticular postcard of animation wonders. I just can't get enough of it. I want that as a screensaver, as just him going back and forth on my screen, because it feels so texturally satisfying, like viscerally satisfying. Like I could reach out and touch it and feel the color. It was magnificent. I don't know. I can't wait until more. And this is the thing I sort of regret about the Netflix releases, is we don't have special features yet. Like, I'm watching it on my TV. There should be a special features button so I can see how the hell they did this, because I will watch that as many times as I watch the movie. It's fantastic.
I don't think Netflix has started doing any special features on anything.
I don't think so.
No.
I mean, Apple TV does it. Disney Plus is doing it.
Netflix occasionally does it as a separate thing, like for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I think they had a little documentary short that was maybe 20 minutes or so, but it's it's not clustered in. It's a separate title, and that's the challenge. Because yes, I would love to see the behind the scenes stuff. I would love to see so much more about the production of this film, and that's the issue we get with Netflix originals. If they stay on streaming, what is the outlet to get those things to the audience? And Netflix, I don't see having a mechanism. I know Apple and Amazon.
Disney Plus has a whole show, right? They do whole shows on their original productions.
Exactly. Yeah. I went back to watch the trailer as titled Connected. And it always happens with every movie. There's clips that are in the trailer that aren't in the movie, but I would think with animation, that's far less likely to happen, because you're gonna, you may have an actor improv some lines, but which is the one you're gonna fully animate? Because there's the scene where Aaron comes out of the porta potty, and in the trailer, it's dad saying, "Don't forget to wash your hands," and he's like, "I never do," and I'm like, that wasn't in the movie. He came out with his book like I was going to read something. And there's another shot of when the technology goes, revolts, of businessmen in Japan or China sitting on a toilet in the water, blasting him off of the seat and out the window. And I thought I would have remembered that in the movie. So I'm really curious to see in this year that it was held up, if there was still tweaking and adjustments going on to this, that they had the time, and what are some of those changes? What are some of those scenes? Because it seems like there's so much gold in this movie. I'm curious to see what, alternate takes, any of that stuff. I want more of this, as much as I can get.
Well, Netflix does still release their stuff on physical media.
Oh, okay.
And so my hunch is that they are likely just saving all of this for those people who want to get it on physical media.
Lame.
Maybe I'll pick it up and I can tell you all about
All
it
right.
one of these days.
It's a real treat.
Well, I mean, it's a fantastic movie. It's a fantastic conversation about this movie. Do any of you have any last thoughts, any other things you wanted to get off your chest before we close this thing up?
I just have one thing, and that is Trolls World Tour. The movie was, I did not care for the movie, but the McElroy brothers of my brother and me, and the Adventure Zone podcast, they did a podcast called The McElroy Brothers Will Be in Trolls 2. And as far as I know, it was a marketing thing for Trolls 2. But what they did was they made it like they just wanted to be in the movie so badly that they did a podcast committing to the fact that they were in it without having permission to be in the movie. And by the end of the podcast, they wrapped it up when DreamWorks finally called and said, "Okay, you can be in the stupid movie. Would you shut up?" And so they got in the movie and they had little parts. And it made me I was over the moon when I got to the end of the cast, and the only unnamed cast member was Griffin McElroy. He actually made it from Trolls World Tour as voice in this movie as well.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what he did, but he is in this movie. So hats off to podcaster Griffin McElroy. My brother.
Are you proposing we try to get into
I was gonna
Dog
say.
Cop?
I'm just
the sequel?
saying
Yes.
there is precedent, Mandy. There is precedent. So.
I'm on board. Wholeheartedly.
I just want to go back. There's, with animation, there's always so many Easter eggs, and there's so much going on in this that I think I want to just rewatch, it as much, like, if I can just frame by frame my way through some of these scenes, because there were so many things that I'm like, I don't even know what the bumper stickers are on the back of their car, the stuff in Katie's room. There's so much stuff that I'm looking forward to getting into. And there's some of the things that I don't know if they're Easter eggs or not. But one moment that did give this household a chuckle, well, my wife and myself, big chuckle. If you had a computer in the mid 90s, you may have had a screensaver called After Dark. And you may know that it's what, Pete, you're nodding.
Flying toasters.
Flying toasters, right? And we had a little field with toasters hopping around, and they looked very much like those toasters. And I thought that's a deep cut, because I don't know that many people recall the After Dark flying toasters. But the fact that was there, I thought, what else are they putting in here that I'm not catching? And so it's entertaining enough to watch multiple times, but I'm looking forward to digging in deeper to find all of the animators' Easter eggs and little things in here on multiple rewatches.
Apparently, the triangle square language on the robot screens is translatable, and there is story there.
Wow.
According to
Translatable
Rihanna.
by what?
I don't know, but he says in interviews, says Easter egg, I guess, all the language that is the robot language, the symbols, is a code that you can translate. And
Really?
there is story there that was unsubtitled.
Oh, interesting.
Don't have time.
So more to unpack.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Mandy?
Each week for Mandemic Monday, I feel like I've been very negative, and I've sat through, God forbid, Thunder Force and a lot of garbage every week that I've really viscerally hated. And now I feel like, similar to how I feel about like the pandemic wrapping up, or if it's coming to an end at some point, I feel reborn. I feel this gave me new faith and new hope in movies and humor and talent, and I'm over the moon about it.
It's a solid film. I mean, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, when that movie came out, I was so on board with that one. I'm one of the few people who would pick that and put it on over Up, because it like the comedy, the way the story hit me emotionally, like everything worked so well in that film. And I think that Lord and Miller consistently keep doing this, and seeing what Mike Rianda does with them here. I mean, the heart, the emotion, everything. It was completely solid from beginning to end. So I loved it, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it here on the Film Board.
The Lego movie destroyed me too, though. I mean, at the end,
Yes,
I felt
I
like that. I
love
mean,
the
it
Lego movie.
destroyed me.
Yeah,
at
but
the end.
Lego Movie doesn't have a talking robot named Steve, so
Sure, that's true.
that's always
That's
got a
true.
close place in my heart. That's all
You're
I can
right.
say.
A talking monkey, not a talking robot.
Talking
Right.
monkey robot. Yes,
Yeah.
There we go.
All right. Well, let's rank this over on Letterboxd. We've got out of 5 stars and a heart. Where would you all land? Mandy, what about you?
4.5 stars and a heart.
Okay, where is the
No?
where is the half star fall?
I don't know. I just feel like I can't give it 5 stars. Why do I feel that way?
I don't know.
You're just like...
I have a thing.
You're just like me, yes.
Like no. This is therapy.
I feel like I have to be able to, because no, this is not judgment, because I'm with you. Like, I feel like, okay, I just saw it. Like, I'm not going to put out on the first date. Like, let me watch it again. But I cannot justify why today it's not a 5-star movie, because I freaking loved it. I loved it, and I can't wait to watch it again. Doesn't that represent the 5th star?
To you.
But yeah.
This is America, Pete, right? We can all have our own opinions.
Okay.
No, I mean, it was a really, really, really wonderful film.
Yeah.
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 It was.
So, Pete, you're saying 4.5 and a heart also.
Screw that. I'm 5 stars and a heart.
Whoa, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. He just...
so what are you?
Upped you. Well, Steve, where are you landing?
Well, I posted my review last night. I was at 4 stars. And so I might go up to 4.5. I do not go by Pete's philosophy of all movies start at 5 stars and they have stars to fall at. They start at 3 stars and they can either lose or gain on what they do. And this is one that the pace felt really good. I want to see on a second watch, how well does it hold up? And it may get to the 4.5 or 5, but I feel like it's going to take a second watch to get there. Very rarely do I have a 5-star movie on first watch. And there's some things. And again, I also am trying to balance out the strong emotional reaction I had to this and say, okay, once I can watch this without just crying every 15 minutes because it's grabbing me by the heart, can I just look at this as a film and see how well this works? And that may get me there to that 4.5 or 5.
You know, for me, I am such an emotional sucker when I'm rating movies. It's so easy for me to say 5 stars because I just love it so much.
And even 5 stars with quibbles. Oh, I've got quibbles, but it's still 5 stars.
Well, and that's where I am right now. I am 5 stars. And the Furbies, I had quibbles with the Furbies. But that's okay. Like, the movie did everything else right. I'm totally okay saying it's 5 stars and giving it a heart because I just loved it. And it's going to be an easy rewatch. It's going to be something that I'll probably more frequently rewatch than some other things. And, you know, I love seeing that they're doing stuff like this and putting it out there. I would love to have seen this on the big screen. I think it would be big and beautiful and just stunning to look at this animation up there. But as it stands right now, I'm thrilled I got to see it, and like you, Mandy, I can't wait to see it again.
Okay, but quibbles with the Furbies sounds like a Yiddish expression my family would have used growing up, like for when you eat a little too much and you have the quibbles and the Furbies.
I need a shirt now. I've got quibbles with the Furbies.
That's amazing.
That's a shout out to my Nana.
Oh, there you go. Mandy's Nana, that one's for you. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all so much for joining me here in the Film Board this week. Mandy, Pete, and Steve.
Thanks, Andy.
Andy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next week, I will be joined by Jordan Peterson, who is going to be here with Charlie Jewell and Hannah Bookdahl from the Cinema Clash with Charlie and Hannah podcast. We are going to be talking about Guy Ritchie's newest film, Wrath of Man.
It doesn't feel right. It's like he wants trucks to get hit. He's not a cop. But if he's not a cop, what is he?
A while back, we lost 2 guards, a civilian too.
There was an investigation.
And they still haven't found the scum who did it.
You were in an accident.
Mama's son.
He didn't make it.
I need to know who killed my son.
The tree has been shook, and it's been shook hard. We've scorched earth.
You started by saying you'd do anything. And what I'm hearing is, you think you've done everything.
I can see it's gonna be a long night.
It's gotta be an inside job. I can do it in 2 weeks. You only wish you could do it in 20 years. And I do bear a grudge.
Don't forget to join our online community with fellow movie lovers. Learn more at thenextreel.com/discord. And if you're interested in supporting us to help keep the lights on and get some great benefits while you're at it, head to thenextreel.com/membership. Thanks again, everybody. Meeting adjourned.